I'm going to ask you a question, and it's somewhat rhetorical. But how many of you have achieved something in life only to find that very quickly the joy of that wore off? Well, this is known as the hedonic treadmill. It's where, and hedonic coming from the Greek word hedonicus, which means pleasure finding or pleasure filled. The hedonic treadmill is described as you just find something you desire, you get something you desire, you enjoy something you desire, then that becomes part of your life and the novelty of it wears off. And so you look for the next thing. What's the next desire? Find the desire, enjoy the desire becomes normal. What's the next thing? And this is what psychologists have been calling the hedonic treadmill. But to really get to the root of this, we need to go back. We need to go back to the ancient Greeks. There was a man named Epicurus, and he looked at this and he said, really, all you need in life is simplicity, family, and moderation. And all of the excess desires that exist in life, like adoration, success, status, and money, are a terrible idea. The reason being that all of those are moving targets, that once you get there, there's another level. So you're better off, he said, crunching your life all the way down into sustenance, shelter, and companionship. And everything else reduced down, happiness will just come about. Well, the Stoics expanded on this. They were around for the next 500 years. They moved from Greece up into Italy. They believed that happiness comes from not looking outside yourself. One of the most common things that we do is we decide we want to get a promotion, let's just say. But the idea of you getting the promotion is decided by someone else. It's when they decide you're ready. They see that you're the right person. They see there's opportunity in the market. All of your happiness now is outside of yourself. So they said, the Stoics said, you need to look inwards. You need to look at things like a sense of character, a sense of virtues, and a search of identity. And when you have those, then you'll find happiness. Well, Aristotle, he threw his hat in the ring too. He said happiness is going to come about when you have good thoughts and good actions, and you keep repeating those day after day until you flourish like a flower, rather than chasing the light like a vine. Well, the Buddhists had something to say on this too. They talked about how attaching yourself to things that are constantly changing will always bring you suffering. Things that are always changing could be money. The value of money changes. Where you get the money changes. The source of all the money might change from the outside world into the market. Putting any of your ideas, thoughts, and happiness into anything that changes is going to bring you suffering. So we need to avoid those. Well, the Tao Te Ching, that went in a slightly different direction. It said that happiness, or rather suffering and avoiding happiness, is going to come if you don't know when enough is enough. If you don't know when to stop chasing after something, some goal that you set for yourself, that will lead to suffering and therefore take you away from happiness. Most of the time, people shoot for a goal and they're lost in that space. And we see this happening everywhere. Many of you might remember the story of Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey wrote himself a check for $10 million in the 1980s that he was going to cash the date he put on there was Thanksgiving 1995, some 10 to 15 years later. The story goes that the day before Thanksgiving, he did indeed get a check for $10 million for working on Dumb and Dumber. But that same year, he also made money from Ace Ventura and The Mask. He went on to make a whole bunch of great movies and then sank into a deep depression, stopping doing any movies and dropped out of the entire industry. What went wrong? My own story mirrors that a little bit as well. My own story, I left Ireland, we're looking for pleasure all over Europe, riding a motorcycle, going from town to town, having a great time for about 6 years. And life was good, but it wasn't very fulfilling. I set my sights on America, came to Florida, became an electrical contractor. Good money, lots of fun, having a great time, but I wasn't fulfilled. I decided to become a scuba instructor and open a dive store. Lots of fun, great money, not really fulfilled. Became a general contractor. Lots of money, good fun, wasn't fulfilled. And then I started buying and selling properties, buying and selling bars and restaurants, and it kept coming up the same way. What I didn't know then, what I know now, is that goals are constantly evolving. They're constantly changing. And here's the kicker that most people don't quite recognize. When you're shooting for a goal, you're getting really good at doing the journey part. You're not really training for the goal itself. So when the goal comes along, it's gone because it's a moving target. And what you're left knowing is how to deal with difficult journeys. And so you go on to the next task because somehow you're slightly fulfilled by knowing how to do a difficult journey. And we hear this being spoken all the time. People say life is tough and we have to push through, we have to endure. And if you look at all of the books on this topic, they'll say things like push through life, no pain, no gain. You have to suffer on through. Think big. Large change makes a big difference. Get a picture of what you want and put it on a vision board, and then you'll have a reason every day to be driving towards your goal. But the reality is, none of that actually works. The truth of the matter is, we have to look at things differently. Let's just say that you wanted to run a marathon. When you decide to run a marathon, you're going to get up every day. You're going to get out there and be jogging and running, and you're going to be making sure that your meals are protein, carbohydrates, and fat, and a ratio of 40, 40, 20, or whatever system you figured out. You're going to make sure you got your water going on. And for 6 months, you're going to be pushing yourself and pushing yourself to get this thing done because you decided that you're going to run a marathon, because when you cross that finish line, that's when life is going to kick in. Here's what happens. You do all of that. You struggle through for 6 months. And when the day comes, you spend 4 hours running and you cross the finish line like that. Then what? You've reached your goal, but then what? What if we could shift the paradigm? What if we could change things just a little bit and see it from a different perspective? What if you asked yourself before you took on anything, what makes me feel deeply alive? Now, if your answer to that question is, I want to be vital in life, that's great. You want to be vital because you want to wake up every day with lots of energy and strength. You want to be vital because you want to have the energy to play with your kids and your grandkids. You want to live into old age still feeling good. You want to be vital in life. When you take on that because you understand that's what makes you feel deeply alive, then every day you're going to want to get up and go for a walk. You're going to want to get up and do a little run. You're going to go to the farmer's market and get fresh, good, nutritious food that isn't wrapped in plastic, instead of getting the terrible stuff from the supermarket and creating plastic waste. This is what happens when you do that paradigm shift. You're going to want to get out and go for bike rides on the weekend. Instead of taking 2 weeks to completely relax because you're so stressed out, you're going to take one day every month and add it to your weekend to make a long weekend and go hiking or backpacking or snowboarding, living a vital life. And for fun, you'll run a marathon. Do you see the difference? There's a paradigm shift there. Let's say, for example, you want to make a lot of money. Most people will decide, I'm going to open a business, buy something cheap, sell it for more money, make a profit, expand that business, and I'll be a millionaire. It's okay in theory, but how about you stop first and ask the question, what makes me feel deeply alive? And maybe the answer to that question for another person might be, I love money. I love finance. I love everything about how money works and how the system goes. I like financing. I like to know how to invest. Just absorb everything in that world into your soul, and you'll get very good at it. You'll have all your friends around you will also be doing the same thing. And as a result, you'll make lots of money, but it'll be a mere detail to how you come alive because you're doing what makes you feel deeply alive, which is understanding finance, understanding money, understanding the market. It's a paradigm shift. My own story, which I was sharing earlier about having countless successes in my life that I eventually realized that weren't fulfilling, I asked myself that same question. I said, what is it that makes me feel deeply alive? And at that moment in time, from having had all these tremendous successes financially and with friends and relationships, I still wasn't fulfilled. The answer to that question for me was understanding life. I wanted to know what truly makes people feel happy. What does it all mean? What's it all about? So I set out to answer those questions. And the first thing I did was went the way of Buddha. Release all your worldly possessions and you will be free. I took it seriously and I got rid of everything. I whittled my entire life down to a car and some notebooks. What I decided to do was drive for Uber, listen to audiobooks all day on everything, philosophy, science, religion, you name it, especially biographies to see how other people did it, to see if there's some wisdom in there for me. Crazy thing is, life has a great sense of humor, and it always brings you exactly what you want, only when you're asking the right question. So here I am. The day I got certified to drive for Uber was the day of the shutdown for COVID and no one could leave their house. So now here I am driving around in a car by myself, listening to book after book after book. I had ring binders making all these notes, and slowly but surely, people did start to arrive in the car over the weeks as people ventured outside. And I was only too excited to share what I had learned with the world and involve everyone who got in the car. And they, to my surprise, also wanted to get involved in those conversations. And I was enjoying that everyone wanted to know the secrets to the universe and what makes everyone truly happy. And then one day, this guy gets in the car, an older guy, looking very sickly. Turns out he had stage 4 cancer. And I wanted to have these conversations. And he said, listen, kid. I thought that was hilarious. He called me kid. Either way, he goes, listen, kid, if you want to know the answer to life, ask someone who's got none of it left. And then it clicked with me. The reason everyone was opening up to me was because everyone thought the world was ending. They thought we were going from a pandemic to an epidemic. They thought that all the world as we knew it, all over, was gone. That all of civilization was going to come undone. And of course, the thing they wanted to know most is the secret to life. How do we live without all those things? I got some great data. 3 years later, I had met 16,000 people, according to the Uber records. I had a stack of notebooks like this. A philosophy was starting to form. And I realized I could write a book. And then I became a public speaker to get that message out there, which is why I'm talking to you good folks today. And if you look at that, I didn't set out to write a book. That's a goal, and goals are terrible. What I did was ask myself, what makes me feel deeply alive? And the answer to that question is all the questions of life. Coming up with the book, writing the book, was nothing more than a footprint as I walked my purpose. Here's the good news. When I whittle all this down and compress it into one piece of information that I can share with you guys today, it goes like this. Everyone has within them a hidden guidance system. And once you understand this hidden guidance system, the world's going to change. Your life is going to improve for the better because you understand what it is that drives life, what it is that drives you. And you'll always know the right the right answer to whatever question you're being asked. So to share this with you, I want you to imagine for a moment that you're an airplane flying along with the wings outstretched. And at the end of each wing is one engine. Each engine, however, runs on different fuel. The engine on this side runs on fuel that is your aspirations and your achievements. And you'll notice I didn't say goals and achievements, because goals are empty, goals are futile. But aspirations, that's who you're becoming as you get your achievements. So that's this engine. This engine? This engine runs on one simple question. What makes you feel deeply alive? The answer may change over time, but today, when we finish all of this, sit down quietly and really get serious with that question. What makes me feel deeply alive? And whatever that is, align it over here with what it is you want to aspire to be and what your achievements are. See, unfortunately, most people, all they have are the achievements. And the closer you get to the achievements, the smaller the part of your life is that what makes you feel deeply alive. The closer you get further, and it dribbles down to nothing. And this is why so many people, by the time they reach their goal, they have forgotten what makes them feel deeply alive. Another way to say what makes you feel deeply alive is, what is your purpose? It's the same thing. However, if you have both engines humming along nicely, in harmony with each other, both of them powered up, and a constant reminder on a daily basis, what is it that makes me feel deeply alive, then all of your ambitions and all of the things that you're going to turn into, your aspirations, your achievements, will be in line. And every day you get better and better at understanding what makes you feel deeply alive. And as you move through life with both of these engines running, you're no longer going to be lost. You're going to know where you're going, because it's going to align with who you are, not what you do. Because purpose doesn't have an end point. Purpose is an ongoing thing. It's an evolution of who we are. As you move through life, what's going to happen is, no matter where you go, you're never going to feel lost. You're never going to not know what to do. You're always going to be in the right place at the right time. Opportunities will come a knocking. Everything's going to line up just right, because you've lined it up with your purpose. What happens is this: at the end of the day, any goal will tell you what you can achieve. However, knowing what makes you feel deeply alive, knowing your sense of purpose, no one can take that away. That's who you're becoming. The more you look into that, the more you know who you are. On the other hand, if you look at goal setting, all of that can be taken away. Whether it's going to be money, if it's going to be the house, it's going to be the car, it's going to be your relationships. They're all going to go. Some by choice, some by force, some are just going to go because that's just the way life is. If, on the other hand, you have your focus on what makes you feel deeply alive, and you become that over your life, no one can take that away. That is who you become. That is who you deeply are on the inside. Moving forward, you will never be lost ever again in the right direction. Thank you so much for your time.